So what I'm going to start off with is just I'll go into what I call the research slides. And I've been showing these slides since probably 1979. But I started in 77, started doing photographs. And I wasn't considering it's photography. It was just I had spent some time in New York. And after being there for about 3 months, I realized I had to when I come back to Victoria where I was living is to change what I was going to work on as an artist. So I'm going to just start with it right away. Right, you can see it. Well, the photos are quite old now, so I was trying to do everything digitally to change my whole approach, but I've gone back to showing the slides. It's just a little more depth to them as far as being able to see them. But anyway, this is the very first. I was still at the University of Victoria, finishing up my last year. And when I came back from New York, when I was staying at a friend's studio, I kept noticing the rooftops of cars as it was going by because we're on the 10th floor. And I just became interested in their shapes. So when I come back to Victoria, this one site, of course, it's not there now. I just went there and started cutting off roofs and dragging them back to my studio and just lining them up, on the wall. And I wasn't sure what I was going to do with them, but I did like the shapes of them. I tried to change them into guitars, like bass guitars. That didn't work. So, and then I started selecting better roofs or waiting for car crashes and getting roofs that were in good shape. And there's a piece now that I've been dragging around since 79 that is still in my studio. So you don't know. I didn't know where it was going to go, and I was still studying painting at that time. But it just wasn't working. But the roofs was sort of like a kick for me to move into another area. I didn't even think it was going to be sculpture, but that's the area I went into. So I started how things are used. For the example of this is in intersections in the Philippines at that time. Instead of having traffic lights, they would show you the worst accident of the intersection. And to us in North America, this is art. It's because it's sitting on a pedestal. And there it's a warning. So I mean, this one looked like it was a pretty bad accident, but. And this is an artist that's still living today. John Chamberlain. He did these in the 60s. These works they're in Texas, in the Judd's collection, Donald Judd's collection. But these ones are four Volkswagen buses that have been crushed into this shape. So they have an aesthetic to them. They're something that he concentrates on when he bends them, or he has a big compactor. And there's a few of them. These are pickup trucks. And this period of his work I like a lot. I mean, he's gone into other things now, but which are more, more designy. So I started looking at things on the street wherever I was going, finding, to me this was like a soft sculpture. And that time, Klaus Oldenburg was doing soft sculpture. But it's just basically somebody who has a concession stand has maybe gone to the washroom. But it's the idea of putting art in places, or what is my position? Where can I go as an artist if I'm not doing shows in galleries, whatever, at that time? I mean, at that time I wasn't, so it wasn't a problem. It was just looking for a space. And also, interested in people who invent their own engineering or solve their own problems. And this was in Banff, Alberta, and I was just living down the street, but I would walk by it every day, and I couldn't figure out for the longest time. I knew it was a roof rack of some sort, but why that length? And I got into the whole thing of the subversion of engineering. I mean, just to do this to a car, at that time for me mentally, it's like, why would you drill in a car? I was like, how could you just drill a bolt through it and do it this way? And then one day he came out and it was for a hang glider. So he said to me, he couldn't find that in a store or he didn't want to pay for it. You can get one shipped in, so he made it himself. So there's a whole series of those. But you can see this solution here. I mean, of course, a Volkswagen has been something over quite a long history that's been subverted. And this one changed my whole career about being a painter. And I came out of the Victoria Art Gallery, and I can't remember what the show was. It wasn't about that, but I remember the tea and crumpets were good. And this was sitting just down the street. And at that time, I was starting to learn to just have a camera around somewhere. And he's a hunter. And what he did is he took out the seats in the back, and he just left the driver's seat. In the back, he stores the wood, and this is a pot stove right in the back. And this is a 2-in-1. This is a bedroom plus boat. And he was just like, I mean, at that time, you're still kind of allowed to do these things. But I think in Victoria, there's no way. I don't think you can do it anymore in Victoria, but some areas you can. But also, again, it was just a way of like bolting into a car. And I think it was so trained that with the preciousness of vehicles that I was trying to find a way where I can, which I never did, but get into a way where I could just not care about destroying something and try to learn how to improve on something. And this one, I moved to Ontario, and everything changed from BC to Ontario. And I guess there's a little more engineering in Ontario. But this was like the little fairs outside of Toronto, and it was a husband-wife team, and they set themselves up, and then I will go to the next picture, but what happens, sound comes in out of here, out of these speakers, and she plays, it's like, it was Barry Manilow type music, and it's like just going out, and then he's a barker, they call him a barker, and then he just goes around and tries to sell you a lifetime music lessons with her, and also like you buy an organ or buy accordion and whatever. But I like the portableness of it and the idea of taking it a little different from just having a shop or something, like being open. But now that sweater's become like actually contemporary again. I think it's a special design. Almost looks like a new Italian design. So there's a series of like how Cadillacs, everybody's either the Volkswagen or the Cadillac becomes a partner to this engineering. So anybody have an idea what this might be? Yep.
Car with 3 wheels.
A what?
Car with 3 wheels.
It's a barbecue. Close. But he didn't care about the barbecue. He made hamburgers, but he's not there that day. But his sale is the hamburgers plus his sauce. That was his main aim. But it was also like the idea that artwork could probably, be more squatted or go to a place and just sit there on its own or have a function. Or not. I mean, it's a very beautiful sculpture. It's a very good piece. And I even liked it framed in there when he's, on a coffee break, sitting there like art. And some of these are just obvious but again, this has definitely been built on its own. And I did happen to meet this person, and it's a long story. I won't go into it, but he did offer me this vehicle if I wanted it, because he quit using it. He lost his wife, and he just didn't want to travel anymore. But it was a beautiful piece of engineering. And like also how people solve some solutions. This was in, I think, in Arizona. Yeah, Arizona, whatever. But this, he wasn't big enough for his average, this is your work van or a holiday van. So he added 18 inches in it, in the middle, so he could sit and fit it. It didn't fit him. That's what I call major surgery. And also the interest of making, just an upgrade in the engineering and the design. This is the bachelor trailer. He didn't care he had friends. As long as he could sell some, that's all he was interested in. I'm also interested in things, roadside attraction, things that work or don't work. Maybe it worked at one time, but I've always said that I think putting the cheese on the top of the burger like that probably discouraged people to come in. You never know. It's like, how do you get a person in the business today? It's like cars and airplane on the roof? I don't know. I think this one worked, but it's a beer garden in Germany, but I think that's why people went there, not for the airplane, but for the beer. How many people have these, things sitting around in their country properties, right? So the tractor's been used a lot for that. Just the signage of coming into a business. Sometimes it's a religious tractor. I'm not sure why this Mexican restaurant didn't work. I think it's a bit of a mixed message, but I don't know. It's well done. Here we are in Moose Jaw. So Al Capone, apparently he was near this hotel, so it's not working. There's nobody stays in the hotel. It's all boarded up. But the car looks perfect. They try. Well, you've probably seen this. This is the roadside sales. And with illegal, there's no way Disney said, oh, that's okay, you can make these garden ornaments. It's parked there because it's a quick getaway, just in case the Disney business people show up. And they do look for it, but I think he's all right. Same thing, but this is on the border from Tijuana to San Diego. So you're in Tijuana, so you can legally buy Disney characters and bring them back to the States. And they're pretty good. Something else. And I also started looking at concessions and not to set up a hot dog stand, but to set up an art product or an art project with vehicles. Some of these I'm just going to go through so I can get to other things. But this I liked formally. The first was the beer cooler. They were taking a break, and they were taking these into Las Vegas because there's money. This cactus will survive, and they're very old. And I can't remember how much he said they were at that time, but it's a money-making deal. And there was all of these motels that they were tearing down because you can see there was a subdivision being moved in. So and he was selling them to the casinos. But I like, just the idea of there's a mattress up in here to give it the soft rest, and using the skid here, and then making sure this, it's braced so it doesn't snap off. I have to keep it full. So, moving a product. And there's just so many different levels and in which way you can think. I mean, there's an artist in Holland now who is John Cormelin, and he's made a big giant shopping cart. So I sent him this, and I know him socially, so I sent him one of these. But I threw this card in here just to give you the reference, but I think I overdid it. It's not necessary, but take the shot, that's it. I usually try to leave them as organic as they are. I find every time if I try to interfere, yeah, you get your message, you can go political. Or think bigger, go into a business. I think that's a little more European, but that's homemade. It works. When the other one it's going to cost you. This is in Vancouver, and I don't know if it's still there now since the Olympics, but I think I took this picture maybe 84 or around then, and then I went back and did a show not that long ago, maybe. I'm always saying 5 years today. Anyway, and it was still there, but there's a car wash. Basically, you pay this guy whose big arm would come out through there, and then they just used rags and cleaned. But it was great to go back because I didn't think it would still be there. So I don't. It's so many years later, so many machines later, and it's still there. And I was doing a show on Granville Island. But it's prime property, but it's very unusual for Vancouver, and something lasting that long. Because you can see it's moving in, the condos. It's $1 million properties now. Uh-oh. Let me just go back just in case, because I know there's no blanks. They're just not dropping. Some of the slides are so old. They got warpage. It's probably more just there's enough stuff that we didn't have to. But shall I just go around? I tried them last night. There was only one sticking, but that's coming up. Oh yeah, we couldn't miss that one. We had to. That's not that long ago. Again, that's in Moose Jaw. There's some pretty nice things being made, but again, it was a card mechanic shop. Perfect. I don't think I could even teach something like that. Huh? It's okay. And we did a trip a while back through Cape Breton, and we found a lot of things in Cape Breton. And being from the West Coast, you know, kind of lost these things that were triggered when I moved to Ontario, and then somehow coming to Cape Breton, I started finding things that were lost in the past, of my past. So that was Victoria. And it was the tail end of people coming up from California and Oregon and traveling up to the Kootenays. And again, I don't think you're allowed to put a barrel of oil on top of a vehicle now, but the engineering is pretty tight. But this was a good move. What this was is say it was only one local gas station, and they told me what that's about. When he's in, you know when he's in because he lifts this up, that there's gas available. So I never saw it up when I was there. this isn't City, but it's basically a place where everybody gangs together in trailers and they sell things. So a lot of those trailers, the Bachelor one, that was in this site. So you can find all sorts of things. But what I liked about this project, everything's made from beer cans and pop cans, and they're whirligigs, things that you can hang on your trailers. Because then this is where my parents would snowbird down into this area. And there was just so much homemade stuff being made. And this was all around, because this was his trailer. And it was tables he had all around. You can see even on the top. And I think at that time, I don't know what they were, like $3 or $2 or something like that. But it was a nice independent project. And they're well made. So they're whirligigs, so they just, they blow in the wind. I think people went into the plastic bottles. That's my dad to try to make money. My mom made pajama dolls. Anybody know what pajama dolls are? I think it took me years to learn what it was, but you take Barbie and cut off her legs, and then you make a big skirt look like a pillow, and you put pajamas in them at night. I've been influenced by... My mother could never explain it to me, but I think it kind of leaked into my work. I mean, you can set up your own church. It's like you maybe don't need a building. Of course, it's a certain part in the U.S., but just finding all these chairs, these, from buses, and it'd be a nice theater. Has anybody seen this? This is in Cape Breton. You know it? I know. I was happy actually to come here to show some of these things, because I don't know if I really saw this. It's fantastic, right? And he was a lobster fisherman, and then that whole thing went out the window, and he became independent. All right, he just started buying all of this stuff from Sally Ann, and made this wonderful project. And he was selling like hamburgers and ice cream and postcards. But I liked the project too, because he set it up that some of these were thematic. And I'll show the next slide. But you can interact. The visitors can interact with the themes. It was like, okay. This is great. My partner, she's, she forgives me, but you got to sit in there, Barbara. You got to go and sit over there. And I've been showing that picture for a long time. But I really like the independence of it and working out a situation. And this is more contemporary. This is in Munich. But students there, like liquor laws in Germany are, I don't know if there is any. So, so as students, they had these guys. There's like two of them who set up this business at lunchtime, and these are beer cakes, and they just drive around and sell beer, so they can go through school. But also, it's looking at it like how you maybe be able to build something that you just take it to the street. And it's all one thing. The artwork, the car, and the site is mobile. I mean, you see more and more of this advertising thing going on, and I've kind of lost interest in it, but it's still part of the possibility. Has anybody seen this one in real? No. It'll blow me away if you did. Anyway, I was just driving around, drive by, and then my partner, she said, "Did you see that?" And I said, "What?" Because we're just trying to get into, I think at that time we're trying to get to Halifax. And he said, "No, you got to drive back." Just drove backed up into it, and it's like, it's perfect. It's been the best piece I've ever seen as a remake home. And so you can, this is called perfect design. It's like, envy. I could never make anything as good as that, but I'm proud of taking the picture. And I like the idea of using this unit, which I have done in model form, but this is complete. So it has your kitchen, it has everything. We all know what a trailer is. But then, the living rooms are not very good in them, so just added it on. And I found a few over different times. So it seems that we all need a bigger living room. I mean, the trailer's almost gone. But that's also to deal with heat. And I mean, I don't think they're thinking of the engineering or the architectural of it. They're just solving a solution. And I know that trailers are really hated. I think, this, for example, again, this is in Canada. But there's bylaws, because if you move a trailer on you buy property, but if you move a trailer on it, they've now started setting up bylaws where you can put a trailer on your property, but as long as you make it look like it doesn't move. So you have to hide the wheels, or you can even go further, just put a roof on it, and it's called a home. But if you see the wheels, you can't. And some of these are just examples of, like, for me, when I first saw this, I thought it was in California, but it wasn't. It was out on the East Coast. So that's a big enough home, isn't it? But those are for gardens. Again, it's just going to be examples of, like, using things to bring your business in. So this was all Lincoln repair. He only repairs Lincolns. Continentals, but so this was out there as an example, and how much better it will be if you come to him. But there's a lot missing, right? It's just, I don't trust it, but I like the setup. And again, this is just a continuance of, like, I've been looking at things, and I had proposed something in '85 in Berlin of using these pup vans or pup units as galleries. So I was going to be doing shows in them. But I've been looking at, and this is around that same time, of how you can take something portable and turn it into something. Because everybody knows this type of horror chamber rolling, I don't know what they call it is anymore. But I've been trying to make a project with a unit like this, and it's the horror of art, and then we would have Chris Burden's Volkswagen where being crucified to it. Munch's, you would enter Munch's Scream, and, like, everything would be within the art horror, and I have it all in drawings and models and as proposals. It was going to be a retirement project, but I'm getting too close to that now. So, and again, that would be just something, the same thing. It just folds out at the back, and you're portable, and you go from site to site. And that's what started me making miniature worlds. And I was going to travel the miniature worlds, and we fold out, charge $1 or $2, so we can get more gas and to keep on going. Okay, this is a throw-in. This is an invention. These are soup cans and AstroTurf. So it's a mini golf, but I found it on the desert behind my parents' trailer park. They didn't even know it was there, but somebody had one time, I guess maybe a year or two before, just set it up for a mini putt. But I love the portableness of it, and just finding it in the desert was something I was looking for. And these were the units that were in Berlin that we're going to turn into galleries, and we just move them along different sites. The project didn't happen, but which is fine. And then the VAG, that's backwards now. It says something else, right? I had proposed the same project with them, and that we would have the units between, and these are the vans. And I would take the viewer on a system, a pedal system through the museum. So, of course, they said, no, we can't do that. We have a cover fee, and that's how we survive. Um, we need people to pay to come in. So I said, okay. They said, but we're still interested in you doing something. So I proposed this time I made it a bypass. So I put a tube through it, and the interior of this space is mine. The exterior just goes, if they wanted, I would ride them through. We would see the Emily cars, go through the pay zone because they're in my tube, and then offer them a ride back if they wanted to come to the entrance to pay to go in. Well, it didn't happen, of course. But it then became that whole, now most of my work is unrealized projects, which in certain countries there's a great pride in that. So I kept, proposing that project, and that's part of the two vans. And then this is the ride that I would take the viewer through the museum. There's a lot of dust on that now. Again, just more examples, fold-outs. I don't know. Oh, I guess I snuck one of my pieces in here. So this is where I had cut the roofs off of the car. This is that site where I built this piece, and it was 2 towers. And the towers are just playing off of what's there industrially. And this was the seat. And then I did a track system and cut off 2 Mini Cooper rooftops and made what I called the mini ride. And I stayed on the site for 2 months, building it for 1 month, and then living in my van on top of the garbage dump. And again, this is 1985. And of course, hardly anybody comes to the garbage dump. Other than the weekend, it's a drinking area. So I would just set it up for some heavy drinkers. But then it got a little pressed for some reason, and then they started included like seeing Art in Victoria project. So they just go to Victoria Art Gallery, open space, and then come to the dump. And it was like, that was pretty interesting to me. It wasn't what I was expecting. But basically what it is, I would just set the ride up. Anybody wanted to get in it, and I would just push it. And you only could push it at a certain speed. If not, it was kind of dangerous at the end because you hit a wall of tires to stop. So the ride actually went in between that tower. That was the entrance, and the dump's up in here, and then come down through here. And that's it many, many years later. So this would have been maybe 2 years ago. The tower's still there. I couldn't believe when these are all, in Victoria Harbor, like it's all surrounded by condominiums. But I found this weird stretch of land that nobody really claims. This used to be the railroad tracks. So I guess what had happened, we tried to get property permission. The track said, we only get it to this point. So this point was unknown land in this area. So that end was owned by a grocery company, and this was owned by the city. So there's this strip that I still have work on. So it's my longest permanent piece. And then from the dump, I got invited to go to California for some reason. So I set up this piece, and it was the crash piece, and it was 3 rides, one from the entrance of the gallery. This is the sleeper ride, and it would come down the corridor and crash into this vehicle. And this is the moon ride, which came out of the office. And then the next ride, that's how you entered the gallery. But it was serious insurance issues, which I wasn't thinking of at that time. But a lot of people who were on the board, they were. So we did get a lot of insurance for each vehicle. The only person who hurt themselves was me. So, and that's the third ride, and it's a Mazda pickup truck that's called a toaster ride. I just ground it down in some kind of like period piece sculpture, but again, it was the first piece that employed 3 people for the duration of the show. I was kind of happy at that time about that. I'm making people jobs. And then it would come down a ramp, and then I cut a hole in the wall, and then I put they call them rebounders, a real stiff trampoline on the wall, and shoots you back into the space. Then I tried to tame it out. This is when I moved to Toronto. And this is a piece where I stayed with it during the show, and that was my bedroom and office, but I never slept in it, but it was my office. And it was the idea that I would add on to the piece per show. So I would crank the viewer in instead of that crash course thing and control the rides. And try to create a job for myself. So that was my job, of moving the viewer around. But I never did add to it, but I still consider it part of something. And that was the sleeper ride, the second version. This is called Domestic Failures, Dry Spin, Spin Dry. And this is a shower stall here. This is your dryer, and this is a washing machine. They all work. I mean, not the shower, but it's cut into it, and this just grinds away. Then you ride the moped, and it's the slowest ride invented, and it stops and then goes back. Again, this is all around 85, so a bit of busyness, I guess, in those days. And this will be shown at the AGO coming up in 2 years. I've only shown it once since that period, but it's been loosened up so it'll be shown. Again, it's insurance issues in that one. But the slowness of it, and the ride was quite pleasant. So I started taking what I was looking at, and then I was asked to do a project called the interpretation of architecture. So I used the street as architecture, and I built the curbing machine. And this is 1986. And it's basically just a gas lawnmower, and it was a tent trailer, and I cut it down into just having it as a trailer and pulled it on my van. And parked on Spadina Avenue in Toronto. And my sights were the French fry trucks. And I've always parked in front of Chunky Fries and a couple others, but Chunky Fries and I got along. And like he came over one day and said, "Why do you do this?" And I said, "Well, it's just I'm working on something, trying to figure out an art thing. So, how much do you charge?" And I said, "That's free. It doesn't cost anything." He says, "How can you do this?" So he came over with some fries, and he says, "Well, if you can do it for free, I can do it for free." So with Chunky Fries, I had a lifetime supply of free fries, but I didn't take him up on it for much longer after that. But he kind of protected the work after a while. I got interested because there would be conversation between the two. Some people come with their fries. You can see them here. Right, go up on the piece. I allowed food in those days, so it was okay. And basically it would turn around and at a certain speed that I painted it at. And then the gas throttle would take it to that speed, and it vibrated. Basically it was a vibrating painting machine. And people would look for answers in it. Saturdays was the best day because it's shopping day, so it's lots of, it was kind of the first working in the public outside piece for me. And it was a 1 month period, parked on the street. And noticed, I started to get to know people. Like, there was a period in the beginning where they didn't like it at all, and then They just couldn't, they didn't know what it was because the chatter was happening and the conversations were happening at work. Was at that time the garment district, so they would, just start giving me answers what they thought it was. And the best one is that they thought I should go to school and learn something. And I told them, well, this is what I did go to university, and this is what I came out with. It's like, I don't know what they're teaching in those places. And it's just like the pieces grow into other pieces, and there's sort of a longer development. I won't go, this is, I don't know how many years later. But I kept painting it since that period and up to 1 year ago, and I've just finished the painting. So it took a while to do, from 86 to 2009. It's a long time to make a painting. This is called the Gift Machine, and its birthplace was in Pittsburgh. And at the time, the project was a year ahead, like that you would look at the site. And at that time, I picked the whole place because I wasn't that type of sculptor where I just stay in one spot and pick it, and that's where everything will be. So I said, I'll use the whole park. And originally, I wanted like 100,000 hockey pucks, but we couldn't get hockey pucks. So we got 100,000 tennis balls and 10,000 squash balls. And basically the job was, like, both of these things fold into each other, and you drive around the park and then set up. This is my machine. And we interact with the public and see, these are we call it gift bags, and that's where the ball storage was. And then the finished balls would go in here, the overstock, and we would build on site. So we had the portable drills in those sites, and then we put them on sticks and put them in, and give them away to the public. And of course, it's like, there was no book to it in that time about what to do. So I had people saying, well, everything will be gone in an hour, or you'll get stampeded and killed. And it's like, so I had to invent some way of how to deal with this. So we got freezer bags, and it became like more of a performance. People would come up and they go, what is this? And like I said, it's a gift machine. Huh. And I said, well, then the thing was like, okay, this is a gift machine. Do you want to see how it works? And of course, most people said yes. And I just say, pull it out of the ironing board and just put it in a freezer bag. And I said, that's a gift machine. And I would give it to somebody else. And they go, can I see how that works again? So it's like, it's not something I had planned, but that's what became, like, there was no stampede because there was a bit of a process. Most of the time people got it, but there was one situation in Pittsburgh where they didn't get it, and left yelling, and we're going to bring in everybody to deal with me. So she came back the next day with her son, and it's like, this is standoff time. And I said, this is a gift machine. Do you want to see how it works? And I gave it to somebody else. I wasn't going to let go of my position. And he got it right away. He says, Mom, it's a gift machine. You can't ask for it. But it's been getting easier since. But it's easy, and it's a happy customer. He wasn't happy at first. He didn't want to do it. He was drinking, and came over later, and it's like, he's happy. And they're also the part of the pieces that they haven't died yet. I mean, it was made for one project, but I'm kind of getting tired of it. But if the right situation, we'll reset up the piece. I still own this one. Most, actually, the street performance pieces I still have. So I still got a bit of a business left. Nope, don't want to get into that one. Okay, there's so much. The idea of taking this, making a sculpture that could travel. So basically, I chopped up a GM truck and made it to a single unit. Took a septic tank, and this is a septic tank here. It's plastic, And I made a miniature world inside, all a model railroad, and this is just a daylight one. So the whole thing, this was the idea as a proposal that it'd be set up and be able to take it as a traveling piece. And these, I bought all the funnels in my local town, and this is all for plumbing, right? Except for those type of funnels, but this is all like plumbing. And my hardware store was wondering what kind of plumbing I had in my place. What was I doing there? Because they know where I was moved to. And they were the most curious thing is why the septic tank? It's because they knew it got moved up there. It's a small town, right? And there was just a new septic tank put in there before you guys bought the place. And it's just so, it's his and hers. This is my wife's tank. So I took this picture in '87, not knowing. I just liked it as a piece, but not knowing that it would show up in my work in '97. I mean, it's a long stretch, but it even maybe mentally, but that piece kind of influenced this piece. And this is called the Auto Office House in Germany, and this is part of the Münster project. But I found this site downtown Münster, and I actually was able to build it on top of this gas station, which was a taxi stand at that time. And the idea was to continue on and build on the piece, because the show is every 10 years in this particular project. So I wanted to be able not to end it, to continue and keep working on it. But it didn't happen. But because it was on the roof, it never got removed. And to remove it, I would have to pay what it cost to build it. So I would have to sell it for well, that's just not that interesting. But then 10 years later, they turned it into a gasoline cafe. That's still my apartment, which unfinished. But again, I had palm trees. I had nothing to do with it. But this is what I had designed originally in a drawing for the future of this piece to become a cappuccino bar. So, I mean, it was my in-laws that told me, you must come and see your piece. It's changed very much. And it had. So, and it's a university town, Münster. So it's a student, and inside there's like music on the weekend. And it's also a coffee and beer drinking establishment. So I lucked out on that. So I actually got to build. The project got built without me being able to do it. So, and it's still there. I own the property. And then there's these, just to show that there's models sometimes after the piece or before the piece. Then I found it in the real world. This is a series of, again, unrealized projects, but this is called the Devil's Bar, and it was a proposal for a project in Chicago. Of course, there's never enough money to do something like that. It doesn't matter, but that was the proposal. I wanted to work with a local brewery, and then we build this sculpture and we sell beer. And that's, we hire a professional server. And that's where you get the beer. But the whole unit was built as a brewery on wheels. These are dream studios, so I'm just going to move along. From industrial parts, I've been trying to make these sculptures. So this is basically what they call an elephant flow, and it's from a train. But then that's the idea of putting a miniature world or something to see in, but this will be outside so it can handle some abuse, because they're industrial parts. I mean, I don't think we'll ever be able to build this, but this is a sculpture for Philip Guston, and there'll be smoke coming out of here like cigarettes. And then the view would just go up to what? I don't know. They're kind of like dead carnival rides. with a little feel of sculpture. So again, just how to set up an interior space for viewing. But on the exterior, it looks like a sculpture. This is my twin maker. Sometimes it gets into some kind of snake oil thing. So if you sit in that chair, you might have twins. And like the Kirby machine, this would be units that would spin, which create the aura for this possibility. I designed this studio for Keith Richards. So it's a studio for Keith Richards. He hasn't called me. Then I did a series of cheese trucks, and it was the idea of making grilled cheese sandwiches off of the engine of the truck. There's a whole series. I don't have them all here, luckily. That's another one, but the idea is that it was, sell the whole unit would be like if we even get somebody to sponsor certain parts of it, like the sandwiches, and then the customer would be picked up, and I work the hydraulics, and then they get up there to have a kind of a more relaxing way of eating your sandwich, and then leave the town, go to another town, and that one's just got out of control. So I don't. But that's what these miniatures allow is to do, that you can play with them. Again, it's just another example of how to view something. This one is designed for my own grave, so it's changed a bit. It's now like I would be buried underneath, but you can view in there. There's nothing to look at. You just look at each other. That's a juice truck, selling orange juice. A little bit of labor to that one. But then there was a series of love rockets. I don't know where that came from. It's just love rocket number 1. I don't know if the other one's there. And this is again for a miniature world, just how to build a unit that you can pull out in the street, and it'd be miniature world inside of it. This was going to be my retirement cottage. And if I didn't like it, I didn't use, I would invite people for tea if I did like them. So then I would kick on the hydraulics. You can come up for tea. I figured that's what retirement's going to be like. This is called pork belly. Again, you'll be viewing into like a miniature world inside of it. And also I set up a living space. This would be whoever's operating it would live there, or myself. So this is another one of those unrealized projects. Is when they're building the Dome Stadium in Toronto, all these artists were being asked, and I thought I would get a phone call, so I started working on it. Well, the phone call never happened, but I just kept on working on this idea of building an artist colony, because it was all part of the railroad yards at that time, and they're building Dome Stadium and already had this track system going, so I was just playing off of that. So this would be an art school on wheels. So these, these regular box cars. That was the sculpture studios. A few problems here and there for landing, but yeah, we got the Colonel to sponsor someone. Sorry about that, but it's like some fried chicken once in a while. They would help pay him for keep the institution going. Of course, like having a ticket system, so people are parking in the wrong place. But also the campus is set up. Every student have really nice cars. Like there's Ferraris and BMWs. In school, there's swimming pools. This is the painting studios. Yeah, everybody's playing tennis. They're not actually painting. And then we have a guest artist. And all that stuff is going directly into the U.S. in those box cars. He's making a lot of them. Again, that goes back into the artist colony as the finances. And it was just done on a door skin or door box or door. And I've been making, that's the first one, so it's in 1987. And then I've been continuing this theme till now. I mean, I'm still doing it now. I'm doing a piece for the Bank of Montreal. I was asked to do a commission in front of this building. And the project, again, is one of those things, it's like, oh, they just wanted something to sit there and die. And so I proposed my sculpture. And again, it's a kind of a living sculpture. You can live in it. Artists can move into it. This is downtown Toronto. And so when I presented it to the committee and the architect, the point was that his building that I was building in front of was only this high and it's in behind. It didn't last long, the meeting. It was very short. You know, it's like, are you kidding? No. I said, let's do it. It's like, they've stopped calling me and doing commissions in Toronto. Anyway, it'd be a nice place for us to live. Just things you see is like, I thought it was a really good use of a sign. Gets the point across. It's like gum. That's one of my pieces. I guess I don't know if it's going to go into, no. This was the project, this vehicle, which you maybe seen a slide before, was just two 60s Volkswagen buses that I cut the ends off and made into a cart. It was all on wheels. And then we built these two-way bikes, which way, either way, for dealing with the idea of there's no front and there's no back. And then I put them into different situations in San Diego and then in Tijuana. And basically we give the bikes away if it's the right situation. And basically pack up and leave. Or I just say you can have the bike. I don't want it. I don't want to. It takes too much to take it home. So we just pull this around. So it was kind of a free vending thing. But we showed it in Paris, and I built a museum for it. So this is called the Cracker Box Museum. So we had a place to go to lock it up in the park, because that all folds up and locks in. And then next day we go out in the park and do the two-headed bike. So every time I've shown, these are just going to be examples, but every time I showed it, it's one of my favorite architects is John Hedgehog. He only had one building built, and this is in Holland. And it's, I think, about 2004 when this is, ignore that, that's me not knowing anything about a camera. When I took the picture, but I think it was finished in 2002. So he taught at Cooper Union in New York, influenced a lot of young architects. But it was the only building he got built, but he died before it was finished, so he never really saw one of his own buildings. But he's an important architect that people are, well, the Architecture Museum in Montreal has really picked up on his work. This is called Wall House. This is a proposal that I did in New York for artists to, like little residences at that time. There was all of those galleries and that you could set up, but these are truck sleepers. And so these would be your sleeping unit while you're doing a project. And they're detachable, so you just attach them into the situation. We ended up building something, it's a trailer and a trailer. Just more examples of setting up living spaces. Yep. Okay, I'm going to go to the second tray. So this is a 2-year project, and it's called Earth Wagons. And basically was to set up a situation in a studio in the city and just work, no phone. and concentrate on something because had been building so many big pieces. And I just wanted to work with this miniature world. Self-portrait. So to give you an example of like the scale, this is a piece of kitty litter, just one pebble. So there's a lot of detail work in this. And I always put artists in these projects. So this is Cindy Sherman and her daughter. But I found like this model railroad materials are just so rich in subject, but also in coloration and what you can do with it. This is Jeff Wall. It's a combo. It's the drainage and Blue Boy. We actually showed this together with Jeff in England. So this is the fishing hole, like obvious. But it was sometimes my own work. This is called chameleon units, all made up from truck sleepers. This is the Italian corner. This sometimes doesn't work. That's myself on holidays, making a sculpture. Of course, the photographer is there. And we lost these pieces. These are little piglets. We lost them between England and back to Canada, so we don't know where they went. So all subjects are there. Everything's there. This is the weekend bridge, trying to get out of Toronto and go for camping. It's a mess. I mean, this hill is kind of based on Robert Smithson, but got out of control. This is the Queen hitchhiking. And at this point, I wasn't showing anybody, and I allowed one person, my closest buddy, and he came in and he says, "There's no disaster." So what do you mean? There's nobody killing anybody. I said, "It's all disaster. Like the whole thing, look at the Queen, she's hitchhiking. The world's run amok. Look at this water, it's terrible." So, and Woodstock is over. She's not in a good situation with that bus driver and that clown going the other way. It's all got disaster, but it's just at the level. But I've run into people who want that kind of like, let's chop somebody up or have them, run over by a train. Like, that's a pretty close call, I would say. And it's one of those projects that, okay, I did the 2-year concentration on this piece, and I will never do it again. I promise myself. I'm only talking to myself. And where the studio was, I would walk back down on Queen Street and go where I was living, and it's just, I couldn't separate miniature world, real world. It was just getting a little too tight. It's healthy up to a point, and then it's not. So I decided to build a building and build a bigger one. And this is called the Bruegel Bosch bus, and it's a 10-year project, a lifetime project. But I worked on it for 10 years. So this is the first day, moving it into the studio that I had built for it. So it was in that space for 10 years. So this is within, I don't know what years, but it's the beginning. And it was nice to concentrate, but this time not worrying about being thrown out by a landlord, and knowing that the piece wouldn't go anywhere. It'll be there until I died. So it's after doing projects somewhere else, coming home, and always having something there to keep me stable, keep me working, where I'm not worrying about my next show or if there's a future. I always had this as my heroine. I always had to get wired up to it. It's been a few generations that have gone through it now. And curators stopped bringing their kids. First of all, they wanted to build something like that. So this little guy, he's grown up now, but he got the garage when he went back to Regina as a place where he can build his own sculpture. So they had to give up the garage for him, and he worked on other things, but it was the idea. And then people, saw it, and then it was the idea of, I didn't want to show it, but I need money for it. So if they wanted to show it, they would have to give me a certain amount of money to move it. They would pay for all the moving and pay, and I won't say how much, but an extra amount of money to bring it back and me to work on it for a year. So it's something that you had to feed money into all the time and be inventive, like how to make money from it to keep it going. So this is the first 5 years, I think, this part of it. So we showed it in Oakville. No, this is the Musée de Contemporain. It's got everybody you know. And everything is going to happen. This is disaster. But I started falling in love with the buildings and like what you could buy in model railroad, and of course adding on to it and building it. And it just got higher and higher and higher. I think it stopped around 18 feet. So this is the start of the building of the museum, but the museum now goes around the whole back end of the car. But I started adding, like, we got general idea here with their work. This is, all the artists I try to include anyway. We got Keith Haring has been buried in the back there. So it just keeps growing, but this is the earlier days, and I don't think I have anything more recent. It now lives in the Hamilton Art Gallery, and I can go there and work on it until I die. So they built a space for it. This is the adult section, so it goes further. But it's high enough that certain age groups can't see through the window. Yeah, this is the adult section in here. So what you were looking at was just this part, but it gets, I don't know, I might have a picture of it. So that's where it is now permanently. You can see how the museum is growing around now. It's just coming down and goes around here. More artists in it too. And this is an old, this period of building, but it's quite a nice site. They built this space, it's on the second floor. And it's that the pieces actually really play with the old city hall, like the period of it, of these, the industry of the buildings and this particular piece of architecture. So it's kind of a nice connection between the outdoor and the piece itself. So there's been a lot of hours on this. Anyway, you can visit it in Hamilton if you're ever there. I add on to it as much as I can. But it definitely came out of that promise never to do it again, and then that's what happened. So it just went further, and I am secretly working on another piece. But nobody can come into it. Anyway. People have been wanting to show it elsewhere, but it's a major nightmare to move it. It's just not good. It's sort of what the situation with this guy's got himself into. This figure got stolen. And I think it was an inside job. Because they were, everything, these are drywall screwed into wood. So, like they're all screwed in. So you would have to come in there with a tool to get it out. And there's just a lot of things, but that was stolen, and then a police car and a policeman, which is not too bad. So this is the one where I made, this is originally made for a place in New York, and it was the truck sleepers. And that was my apartment. I think I only got that was it in New York, and then this is, again. Then I brought it back to Canada and showed it in Windsor. But I let the students use it as an apartment. So there was one person in charge with it, and they rented out the rooms. It's a nice view. Picnic area, patio. And then I showed it at the National Gallery, and that was my office. So I would stay in here. This is my sleeping room. And then I would do speeches, whatever. I'm going to talk to people. But the best thing was a bar here. So food, sleep, drink, food, sleep. Telling a big story on that one, I think. And that's where it last stand. It got destroyed in Montreal. Not by people. It was just a bad situation. But it's pretty strange because I tried to find my own site where nobody would bother me because I wanted to be next to Calder's piece, but I couldn't do it. But then the artist started moving down this end. And this guy moved in here with his work. Somebody canoeing with no head, and I don't quite understand that. But I saw it coming, moving along, and then the guy comes over. He thought it was an information center, right? So it's like, no, this is my artwork. Oh, you're an artist? I'm going, yes. I know you are, but... So that's my bedroom. I don't fit in there anymore, so it's like, I outgrew it. I have to go into double sleepers now. But it had its own heating and had its own radio system and stuff, so it's all set up. And this is just a proposal of a bigger one with it. So these are models of a piece called Decoy Homes. And I built that one in Canadian Tire. That's more of the studio idea of it. And it represents this piece, which is, these are all garden sheds and sleepettes, and then again using a kernel as lighting. But my studio at that time, I was right next to a Kentucky Fried. In those days, they still had the rotating ones. So that was what I saw was the moon where I was living in Toronto. So it's like Decoy Homes, the moon. And it was the idea of like, if I'm going to make art, I have to make something I can sleep in. That was the rules in those days that I made up. Because if I'm going to get paid for something, I felt guilty about making art. So it was, if they give me money, okay, if I sleep in it, then everything's all right. Then I just started adding on to the theme. So this is the surfer shack. So I was starting to build like a colony out of garden sheds. There was up to 3. There was a sun shed, but then we added the pool for Winnipeg. It had its own lighting system. That was kind of nice. So you just plug it in and everything. Didn't have to worry about, ladders and gallery lights. And that was recently shown in power plant 3 years ago, maybe. I would talk about this, but it's going to go on too much. But it is still that interest of like how to bring it to the street. This is a daycare. It's perfect. I mean, the daycares I've seen on the streets in Toronto, they're all roped up, but this is a way better idea. Put them all in the same hat. They'll feel fine. It's like, again, I just love the simple way of some kind of entertainment. Then we're getting more into our North American ideas. Let's make them spin around real fast. Again, just more proposals for artists. This is called, I don't know what's the name now. Forgotten. But these would be studios. These are your big sculpture studios. But that would be all on the barge. And this is some of the socialization that goes on. And they came to Germany. These are all figures that are made in Germany, so they come out with different. The punk scene came out, maybe 5 years ago or so. Construction worker. This is myself talking to an art dealer. You just can't. I mean, the thing is that the pieces are narrated, and that's what happens. It's like I try to make each figure talk to another figure. They're all talking. So that's the two-headed bikes I was talking about. And every time we show what is it, toaster work wagons is what it's called, we build bikes. Some places, we can build up to 10, and some places we only build a couple. And in each show, I bring one back for the series. So that's why the piece has its own museum and has all the bikes on the outside. They're all from different shows. So it's building its own history. They're too big for it, but they can handle it. I just thought they looked great with hard hats on this. They're not going anywhere. So it's kind of a continuance of the Kerbin machine, but finding where my zone is a sculpture or a piece to go to, and then this was a taco truck. So I would kind of appear there and with these bikes, and they slowly get interested in it. And so his son, the guy who owns this taco truck, he's got one. So they're just showing different ways of transporting it. I don't know what museum. This is the first time I showed it. I mean, I built this for my goddaughter a long time ago, and they played with it. But this is the first time I put it into a public situation. And I never knew, I couldn't figure out. Anyway, this kid, this is his sister, this boy here. And then she just, you can do it, but you have to coordinate with each other, and they have to communicate. So he just did it his way, and it should show up. Yeah, he got rid of his sister. And he just figured it out. I didn't know you could write it with one, like I just never even thought of it. And he was just riding over the place. So he got one, and the sister got one. And this is Planet Hollywood in San Diego. I was getting run off wherever I went, and the police were, because we were near McDonald's, the business, whatever. There was hardly any places we could go to without the cops coming. So parked in front of Planet Hollywood, and what was great about Planet Hollywood is the security there is separate from the other parts of that part of the city. And they said the only time you can't be here is when the movie stars come. So we don't care you're here. It's okay. So it became more of a permanent place. But if Arnold Schwarzenegger, who owns that business, and Bruce Willis was another one at that time, if they ever showed up for something, publicity business, we weren't allowed on the site. So it was kind of interesting to have that, like this fake world, and it was a safe zone for me from police, but it wasn't from the actors if they showed up. And so, just finding different sites to have that was a hot dog stand there, so we just had a hot dog and stayed under this airplane. And these are just some of the examples of the sites. Sometimes we just leave a bike and just get in the car, pack the piece up. So this is the car museum. So the car museum has one. This was kind of these two boys here, that was kind of a nice situation. And with an interpreter, we had it all worked out, and it said, yeah, you can they wanted to know if they could ride the bike, and I said, yeah, you can ride the bike, and interpret it through, and it's like, no problem. And then they took off, and I said, just went down over that hill and never saw them until I thought that's part of it. It's great, whatever. And this little girl, she got one too. But it's 3 that day. Anyway. But then they came back later. They came back and said, "That's cool. That's cool." I was like, "Yeah, that's good." I said, "You can have it. It's all right. It's yours." And they took off again once I got through. And then I found them at the end of the day on the beach. They were swimming around there, so they had this kind of different life that they would go into. This is a daycare in Mexico. At that time, the beach was foggy. We had nowhere to go, so we had to move inland a little bit. Found this. There was just a trailer there. It was a nice site. They got one for the school, and sometimes I would squat other artworks. This is Beverly Peppers, and like the piece feels like it's trying to have a conversation with that sculpture. This is my favorite spot. I mean, you can see the piece felt a little more prouder than usual. It's not often you get to be near. That's one of my workers. It was a dead day. And that was its site at night, so we could lock it up at the pier. Anyway, this is more examples of what I'm doing. So you sort of it's pretty straightforward. But this is my little fish hut that I built for ice fishing. And it was for a project in Lake Nipissing for artists to build fish huts. So I got right onto that project. And that's the interior. Is that focused or does it seem focused, or because I can't, or it might be just one of those pictures I have. It's not my cell phone. Anyway, that's my kitchen area. So there's a lot of stuff set up for sushi too. So we're on the lake for a month, and I wasn't fishing very much, but we were drinking a lot. And then going off the lake to get fish and chips. But it was all just the building of it was everything kind of fell into place. So these are just water tubs for horses, but we turned them into windows. Again, IKEA chair, and that was our sitting area. It was really comfortable for 2 people, but we did have up to 6 people in there. And then I just wanted to show it in the gallery at the time that I was with, and show it in the city, just in Toronto, see how it would. Well, just let them know I'm still working. And that's the whole setup for its mobility. Nah, I'm not going to talk about that. These are some more recent things I've found, like things getting lassoed up. I don't think anybody's going to steal that bike. It's the best locking system for that trike. It worked. This is the strangest thing, but when there's picking up school kids, the buses, and then they stay in it, like the father usually builds a shed or something, while they're waiting for the bus, because it's all in the area I've got my studio is all agriculture. This is actually a stop for the kid lives up in here, and the bus stops here to pick him up. That's a working Coke machine, just like. That's a nice dad. And this is a show at the power plant where I just borrowed. These are all in collections. Not most of them are in museum collections, and I just borrowed them back and put them into the idea of in this show was the piece to be turned into Home Depot. Everything's in storage here. So it was, it was kind of a museum or the power plant's nightmare of getting the loan agreements. And it's like, I'm going to show them, just so let me use them. They're mine. I just want to stock them up. That's called the pepper grinder. It's the ultimate lawn cutting machine. Just, I'm going to. This was built for the Winter Olympics in 1988, and it's 2-headed lizard with a single shot, and it was we played Patsy Cline and Roy Orbison's greatest hits. So there's Patsy Cline on this side, Roy Orbison. So the sound would just mix in the middle here, having the sad songs of both, and then I would take the idea of the athlete, the ones that come in fourth, and I would give them a shot of whiskey, and we shut it down and let them cry. Never happened, but that was the idea. Well, the drinking did, but not the. No, it's hard to get a fourth position to volunteer on this. This therapy wasn't going to work for them. And this is Willie Nelson on a one-leg horse. No, I was just standing on the street. It's like, that's Willie Nelson. So I took a picture, and that's all I got. It was, his horse went missing. Okay, I'm just going to show. Oh, we have to drop that, right? There's only a few in here, and I'll be quick with those. But I could also open it up for questions, too. So. This is magic. This is new for me, so. Oh, and it worked. So does it just get brighter on its own, or? I just wanted to show this is like after, how many years after that I actually finished the piece, the painting part of it. With this digital thing, it's kind of lost it.
Can you explain how the painting works?
Yeah, it's just where Josh is here, you crank this is your throttle to the motor, and we actually put a better motor in it this time. And it's basically just spray cans, Tamiya Japanese spray lacquer paints. And then you just hold it, the dish is spinning like this, and then you just hold it, use your finger to balance and just spray, and it'll go. But it's like weeks and weeks, finally getting, I had to strip it down and start again. I just wanted to finish it. Now, the Glenbow has it, so it's in storage. But because it would sit outside for a few years and get into a show, and I would have to bring it back. But originally, it was the idea of making a painting machine. In those days, you can get the 6-foot satellite dishes. That's all it is, and they really were abundant. And then they just disappeared. Right? They're hard to get. And these ones are beautifully spun. You can get copper ones, but these were aluminum. So the idea was just to keep making paintings. Oh, it's just. And it was interesting to show that the piece over years, but on this is in Calgary, this particular project, a new thing for me is, first of all, I'm not operating it. I've hired somebody to do it. I'm in the audience now, so I'm no longer. I find if I'm operating something, like there's a certain age thing, and like it's best to have somebody younger doing it. It gets the stress between an older person on the street is changing. But what I was really loved about this, everybody has bags now, right? So there's this kind of bag culture going into the piece, which never existed before. Originally it was French fries, now it's bags. And like how bags get deposited, it's like, she's perfect. She couldn't have done it better. It was Josh is not happy there. It was cold. It didn't warm up. But what was also nice about, I think because the color worked, and it'd be wiggly, right? It's like it doesn't just go ring, ring, ring. It just has a movement, and it doesn't make you sick. I mean, I couldn't paint it in a way it will make you sick, or you just fall off of it. So there's a bit of a tame to it, you know. And when you're painting it like that, you see it for days after. You sleep and it's still there, going like this. It's like it was definitely ended, but the viewing audience, with the way it was done before, they wouldn't stay up there that long, But because of the coloration of it, and people would stay in a long time. It would actually we would just shut it down just so that it goes steady. It's just going, tuk, 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 tuk. They know it's over. And then we had one person, it was a couple, and she was looking into it and said, I didn't say anything. And I was walking around, it was already a crowd at that time. And her friend said, she's gone. And I went, what do you mean? She's gone. And I looked, I went around and saw her eyes, and they're just going like this. Josh shut her down, and it's like, slowed down, and she was still standing in front of it. It's like, we had to help her down. And she went, blue, green, yellow, red. She memorized the colors. I was like, wow, best customer ever. So this was a project fairly recently, before finishing the Kirby machine. And it's called Don't Look Back. And it was a project to be in the space originally for a month to do a wall drawing. And I don't do wall drawings. But the person who runs this gallery I really like a lot, so I said, okay, I'll do it. And it was the idea to work with, I have to get space to myself and just work on a drawing. So originally I took things out of my sketchbook and said, oh, we're going to copy that, and it never worked. So it might be hard to explain because I've never shown this other than when I was in front of it. But long story shorter is that I ended up being there for 4 months and drawing as many days as I could. So we basically moved into the gallery and he canceled all the shows that were coming up. So it gives you a sense of the scale, but it just grew out of itself. And I was using these Copic pens. They're a Japanese pen, and it just sucked onto the wall really nice. And they're quite rich, but they're dry. They don't look creamy, whatever that is. So Barbara's just in there for reference of scale. And then this figure, this is my Martian, and that's where it all came out of her mind. This one here. So, this is what happens when Martians drink martinis and smoke. But everything is attacking. The aliens are attacking. It's like something I would never do. But you can see that on all of those dots around this building or the martini glass, she has a really nice glass, is flies. They're all flies. So they're like little sketch flies. Okay, see, this is just going to keep going on. So this is the start of a project in Amsterdam, but oh, this is what I wanted to get to. This is a more recent thing. I've been drilling holes in things for over a fairly long period of models. At that time, just for my own kind of reference. It came out of the cheese trucks. But then I wanted to make a projector, turn this into a projecting machine. So there'll be a lighting system in it, and it will project out figures. There'll be miniature worlds inside, and then if the piece hits a certain part, this is the real truck. So there'll be like lenses. They all turn into lenses, and we project whatever figures I got going for it. So we're just at this point now. It's got a lot of holes in it. And that's, with the model it was easy, they're not going to collapse, but with the car I thought it would just eventually just collapse, but they hold up pretty good. Yeah, this is kind of a conceit. But the night, these are my own photos, they're never good. We have to get the real pros in, but it doesn't look like that. It's far more brighter, and it just bounces off to the side of the building. But it just gives you a rough idea. And it's called Holy Van Auto Lamp. And it was a street stopper, so because it was coming over the Ambassador Bridge and people pull over, and these are just more examples of building. This is Outer Rickshaw. That's it. Thank you. Thank you.